Hello, welcome to today's edition of our series on pricing for profitability. Today we're going to be looking at how do I price my products for profitability. And without much ado, we're just going to go into this program and talk about pricing for profitability. I remember the focus is on the e-commerce sellers, how to price your product for profitability. Right. Pricing for profit for e-commerce sellers. And, people who sell online, they're different to people who have products in the shops. And what's the difference between these two people? When you have a product in shop, where you're a brick and mortar store, you have your shop, you have different products. So what that means is that you stock up your shop with different products. Let's say, for example, you're into grocery, you have Milo, you have milk, you have butter, you have egg. And by the time somebody walks into your shop, he buys milk, he buys he buys milk, he buys he buys different things. By the time he's walking out of the shop, maybe he's already purchased something worth of $50 or £50. That's what we call average order value. So for someone who works a shop, that works for you because what you want is that when somebody walks into your shop, you want the person to buy as much thing as possible. So let's bring that to e-commerce sellers who sell online. And my idea when I'm talking about e-commerce sellers, people who are trying to build a brand, not just people who maybe you're selling a marketplace, you have almost, 1,000 products and you're just selling and turning out things. My idea is people who are wanting to create a brand. Maybe they produce a product, they produce something that solves a problem, and are trying to market that and really make that brand to be known. So that's the people I have in my mind when I'm talking about pricing for profit for e-commerce sellers. Who am I? My name is John, and I help small and medium-sized enterprise, that's SME businesses, to enhance their profitability, increase revenue through strategy, data-driven marketing, operations, and then product development. And also help people who want to transition into tech careers. So that's why whenever I talk about, profitability, is because it's something I'm passionate about. And when you're selling something, you really want to make sure that you are set up to profit right from day one. Now, we are talking about pricing for profitability. The pricing error that could put you out of business if you're not careful about it. Right. So now, for anybody who sells, let's say you sell in your shop, most things are the general standard thing everybody knows is okay, gross margin percentage, and that's a general pricing guideline. And what that means is that you buy a product, a certain fee, and then you sell it for retail times 4. So that's cost price times 4. So that at the end of the day, your margin is 75%. So that is basically what the standard thing that's acceptable, that's the general acceptable thing. But the truth is, not all margins are equal. So that means you're talking about your profits in margin, in percentage. So you're saying, oh, I've got this percentage of profit, without actually looking at what does that percentage translate to in numbers, in actual money, like dollars or like pounds. So that's basically what we mean. Right. So that is what we call gross margin percentage. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a very solid strategy, but the issue is that it doesn't give you guarantee of being profitable. And the reason being that because actual profits in percentages is not enough to cover business expenses. And what does that mean? 75% margin could mean a lot of things, depending on how much you're talking about. 75% of £10 is different figure when you talk about 75% of £1,000. So do you see the two different things? While we talk about when you want to actually give a price to your product, don't always look at the margin. Also look at the real price you're going to be getting to be able to make your pricing work for you. Because at the end of the day, you want your business to be profitable. You want your business to be viable. So that's basically what we mean by this. Right. So what do you need to do? Calculate your product in real money figures as well as percentages. Why? Because, when you sell online, you're going to be factoring things like cost of fulfilling orders, the overhead cost. When I talk about fulfilling orders, let's say you're just starting. You're the one that's going to get your product, you pack it, you're going to print out the label, the gum, the printing cost, all those paper, those things cost money, and these things need to be factored in. And also the labor, because you that's going around doing that thing, your labor needs to be factored in as a cost to the business. And also you also factor in the cost of the posting, which is, the cost you're going to use to post. And then also the material for packing it. All these things are part of your cost, which needs to be factored into each product when you're trying to determine the price. Right. So let me give an analogy of what I'm saying to actually make it, real to everybody. Because when I'm talking about margins, I'm talking about cost, you might be listening to me and wondering, how do I relate this to my business? So I'm going to be giving an example with two different shops. One is a shop that sells cup, and one is a shop that sells shoe. Remember from the beginning, I said my idea of this shop is a shop that's trying to build a brand. And most times they don't sell lots of products. They focus on product that solve a problem. And most times not lots of products. So it can be few products. So that's why you need to be sure that you're getting yourself set up for, for profit from day one. Right. Let's look at those two shops. The first person is selling a cup. The second person is selling shoe. Let's look at cup first. So the cost price is £2.50 per cup. Now, if we look the standard price, the standard way of calculating your pricing, which is, times it by 4, that's the margin we're talking about. £2.50 times 4 is going to give you £10. So £10 is the retail price, £2.50 is your cost. If you take away those two things, you're going to be looking at a profit of £7.50 as your profit. Now, so what percentage margin is this? That's, 75% margin. So the money you're getting, the profit you're getting from this, product is £7.50 and it's 75% margin. Now, let's look at a person that has a shoe shop. The shoe costs you £10 to buy a particular shoe. If you use the standard general way of calculating your price, which means times 4, you're going to get £40 as a retail price. If you take away the cost, that's £10. So your profit is £30. This is also the same thing, 75% margin. That is also what you get. So what does this mean? It means that both of you are getting the same margin, but you're not getting the same money. So do you see why I talked about thinking about what money you're getting, not just looking at a figure? The shoe guy is getting £30 per product, and the cup guy is getting £7.50 per product. So how does it relate to what we are trying to explain now? So for the margin, which both of them are getting 75%, let's talk about fulfillment. I explained that fulfillment involves the labor, the cost of the material you're going to use to pack it, the printing, even the trip to the shop, if you're doing it yourself. If you're using maybe a 3PL or fulfillment center, they're going to give you a cost. So this is going to actually help make it easier for you to calculate. Now, if you chose to use £5 as, the standard fulfillment fee, if you've done those calculations, if £5 is your fulfillment fee, so let's do the analogy for the cup guy, the shop, the guy that sells cups and the guy that sells shoe. So look at it. From our calculation, the cup guy is getting £7.50 for profit. And this £7.50, if you remove the fulfillment, which is £5, what does that leave him with? £2.50. Now, let's look at the shoe guy. Remember how his profit is £30. If we take away the fulfillment, which is £5, from the £30, then that means it's £25 that is actual money he's getting from this. Let's look at these two guys. Both of them are making 75% profit. But look at what it actually shows in actual real money, which is what they're going to spend at the end of the day. Now, remember, when you have a business, the goal is for it to pay you. So if this guy that sells should decide, you know what, for any shoe I sell, I'm going to pay myself £5 for all the hard work I do. If he does that for every shoe he does, from that £30, if you remove the £5 per shoe, which he's going to pay to himself, that means he still has £25 left. Remember, his cost price is £10 per shoe. So after removing the fulfillment, removing the amount he's going to pay himself, he still have 25 pounds. Let's look at the guy that sells cup. This guy, after removing the fulfillment cost, what he has is £2.50. Now, what can he pay himself? I'll leave it to answer this question. So let's look at it. In a year, let's say they sell 10,000 orders per year for these two guys. Now, because the cup person gets £2.50 for each order after all the things have been factored in, that means in a year is £25,000 that he gets back. That's not much for him to pay himself salary and reinvest in his business. So if you look at it, the cost of the cup is £2.50. So if he has £25,000, that means what he's just going to do is to go back to the shop, buy another 10,000 worth of cups and sell again. Just keep working for nothing. Can you imagine that kind of thing? But look at the person that sells shoes. So out of his profit is £30. Let's calculate that £30 times the 10,000 orders he did in a year. That means in a year, he has £300,000. And remember, his cost of goods is £10 for each of the shoe he sells. So if he decides to pay himself £5 per year, that means in a year he can comfortably pay himself £50,000 per year. Then, and also having an extra money that he can put back in his business. So do you see how these people are making the same margin? But when you look at it, they are not get us. I think I made a mistake there. So it's £50 is taken. So out of that cost, it's going to be £250 remaining. So do you see this same business, same effort they're putting to make everything, same fulfilling of orders? The one person doesn't have any money to show in his business, the other person have money to show for it. So do you see, look at things you're going to be thinking about when you want to start selling online to make sure that you're profitable from day one. Right. So let's say if you're the person that sells cup and you're watching this video and you realize, so that means with what I'm doing, things might not really work for, this business doesn't look profitable in the long run. What do you do? This is a product you like selling and you're already selling it. You're not just going to close your shop or close what you're doing. So how can you play with the pricing to make this business work? So this is what we are going to be discussing next week. It's called margin contribution amounts. So what we look at is minimum amount of margin contribution each product must generate. So that is how you need to be thinking of calculating your product, calculating the pricing that can help you to be profitable. So next week, we're going to be discussing this in detail to see if you're this guy, what can you do to make your business work? But if you're already on the right track, that's perfect. So always think about profitability when you're doing your business, especially when you're selling online, when you have different things to factor in. Make sure you're getting all those costs properly. And, to help e-commerce sellers, people who sell online, I'm developing a book that's going to help you with this. It's going to look at the different strategies of pricing, all everything that's to look at, apart from the calculations, even then understanding what you need to understand when you're trying to price your product. You will really need to get this book if you sell online. And also, it's going to come with tools that I can just, plug in your figures and it shows you this is the kind of amount you need to sell your product. This, how long you're going to be to get a break even and all those information. So check out the bio for the link to get the book. It's launching on the 19th of July. But catch me next week as we talk about margin contribution amount for your business. Thank you for listening. Cheers. Bye.